Hello, my name is Katie Zimmer, and I'm a secondary education major and a Spanish minor here at Michigan State University. I do live on campus, so for about 8 months of the year, I am here in East Lansing, so that's why I decided to do my community walk about this beautiful city and all it brings. Before starting this presentation, I do definitely knew a lot less about East Lansing. I knew some basics. I knew that it was a great place to live and raise a family. I knew that you could receive a higher education here, specifically at Michigan State, and that within the city you could find grocery stores, local businesses, restaurants, community centers, and so much more. But that's kind of where my understanding ended at. I didn't know much about the history or what you could find at those locations exactly. To break down the demographics of East Lansing, the largest racial group is by far white or non Hispanic, with 71.9% of the population being this. The second largest racial group is Asian or non Hispanic, with 9.15% of the population. And the third largest racial group is Black or African American, non Hispanic, with 7.6% of the population. Then going into the percentage of foreign born residents, it's around 10.5% of the population of the city. And then the percentage of people over the age of 5 who speak languages other than English is around 15.9%. This, speaking of other languages, will come into play much more later in this presentation. Now to share a little bit of history around the city, East Lansing sits on the historical lands of the Anishinaabe, also known as the Three Fires Confederacy, which consisted of the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi tribes. During the 1819 Treaty of Saginaw, these people were displaced from their lands, forcing them from their homes. When the Agricultural College of the State of Michigan, known as Michigan State University today, was founded in 1855, it became clear to the colonized land would not be shared. Now that we have acknowledged the wrongs for stealing these lands, we have started to recognize the tribes that once inhabited the area. We have added land acknowledgments, named parks as the Azadika Park after native words, and hold annual celebrations of Indigenous Peoples Day. However, these acknowledgments alone are not enough to address the harm of the past. We must continue to recognize and address the harm done to the Anishinaabe people. Discrimination did not only happen to the Native American people in East Lansing. The city may have not especially been known for slavery, but that does not mean that racism, segregation, and overall hatred of African Americans did not occur here. For example, East Lansing was a sundown town, meaning black residents were not allowed outside during night hours. A well-known historical revolutionary and black nationalist leader, Malcolm X, house was burned down in what was thought to be a racist attack by the white supremacist group Black Legion. Not all the black history that took place in East Lansing was negative, though. The area was also known to be on the Underground Railroad route leading to Canada. We were quite literally part of their route to freedom. Now to talk about some people important to East Lansing's history. Theophilus Capon Abbott, born 1826, lived till 1982, was very important to the city. Born in Vassalboro, Maine, Abbott always had a passion for education. He worked at multiple schools in both the states of Maine and Michigan before accepting a position as an English professor at State Agricultural College, now known as Michigan State University. He quickly began to make his way up in ranks, becoming the treasurer of the college and then as secretary pro tempore. Abbott's name became known due to all his hard work and motivation, leading him to be unanimously elected as a college third president in 1885. During his entire 22 years of presidency, he continued to teach and chose not to retire from that position until 1889, 4 years after he concluded his presidency. Abbott may have had to fully retire due to his health concerns. However, his impacts to the city did not stop being acknowledged. Post-retirement in the year 1890, he deservingly received his honorary LL.D. degree from the University of Michigan. In 1892, after a lifetime of achievements, Abbott's health concerns fully took over, leading to his death. Now we honor his legacy by naming both an East Lansing Road and a residential hall on campus after the dedicated man. Another person important to the history of East Lansing is John M. Patriarch. He was born in 1917 and he lived until 2007. John was born in Waltham, Massachusetts, and later in life he moved to Michigan and earned a position as the city manager of East Lansing for over 30 years. He oversaw major expansions of the city and also major development too. John at last gave up his position, but his legacy did not end when his retirement started. In 1976, the exact same year as his retirement, the park formerly known as East Lansing City Park in Alton Park changed its name to John M. Patriarch Park. The name it is still known as to this day. Now that you know some history, I'd like to tell you about some of the businesses of the city and how language plays a role there. The first community location I went for my community walk was the City of East Lansing Police Department. This was located at 409 Park Lane in the City of East Lansing. As soon as I got to the building, I was a little disappointed. I realized every sign on the outside was in English, no other languages were present, and it was the same issue when I got inside too. Every sign was in English, and that was the only option. I then speak to some officers, and they informed me that there are interpreters that you can talk to on the phones if you contact them, and that is something you need, and that there are also Spanish-speaking officers. Those are the only languages you can be between, though, if you're talking to an officer's English and Spanish. And there is an ASL sign, as you're seeing here, if that's something you need. But honestly, I was kind of disappointed with the options I had at the police department, and I really wish that there had been more. I then headed over to Campbell's Market Basket, located at 545 East Grand River Avenue, also in East Lansing. And I will say, going into this, I knew it's just a little market. It's the only location of it, so I didn't expect to find a lot of cultural food, and I kind of was right. Once I got inside, I did find a little multicultural section, as you're seeing here. But a lot of the foods are kind of like the multicultural foods you're going to find in any stereotypical grocery store. You're going to find instant noodles, you're going to find like beans, all that kind of stuff. So nothing surprising, but they did have options. I did find a couple foods like this that there were other languages in, but again, nothing crazy, kind of what you're going to find in any stereotypical grocery store. They could almost be considered fake cultural foods if you want to put that term onto it. If you want slightly more multicultural foods, a couple doors down is Poke Fresh. I recommend it, but at the same time, I will say I didn't see any other languages on the door, so it's pretty Americanized too. My next stop was East Lansing Public Library, located at 940 Abbott Road, also in East Lansing, and I was really impressed. This was definitely my favorite spot. When I first went inside, I didn't notice a lot of posters in other languages or any of the signs, so that made me a little bit nervous, but honestly, not a big deal whatsoever. Right here, you are seeing there are books that are in other languages inside the library. It is a decent-sized section, and it did not take me any time to find it all. So many languages were present within this, which was so amazing, something I was very excited to see, and better than anything else I'd seen before. This right here is the Mango app that is being showed off. I later talked to the librarian, and she pointed out to me if you have a library card there, you're able to use that app for free. Helps you learn other languages, which is amazing. I did also notice that there were children's books specifically in this section. So amazing how they had this, and I was very happy to see all of this present within the library. The last thing I'd like to note that the librarian pointed out to me is that if you go to Refugee Development here in East Lansing, that's a great place to go to get other language help. My last stop was East Lansing Hannah Community Center, located at 819 Abbott Road. This was nice, wasn't as good as the library, but definitely came with a lot of features. Multiple members of their staff speak Spanish as their first language. I was informed this by the front desk, and they gave me a paper to glance at that had a lot of different languages on it, as you kind of see here. I was very impressed with that. I thought it was wonderful how many options there were. It wasn't just the basic English and Spanish. Lastly, they handed me this pamphlet that supposedly had more information about things you could do, like to learn language, but the only thing I found in it was beginning Italian conversation. But honestly, this is better than nothing, and it's a great way to learn a language other than the basic English and sometimes Spanish that you commonly see. I definitely found English to be the most common language in the community. Yes, you can find resources that relate to Spanish, sometimes ASL, and a couple other languages, but overall, English was the main resource that I could find, which was a little bit disappointing. If I was to be working in East Lansing through my teaching, I definitely found some places I could recommend my students to go for resources. The library was definitely my favorite, especially that Mango app I think is so wonderful to help you learn languages, and all the books that they had there for students to use. Then I also did like the community center, especially like how they had this paper that had all the different options for it. I thought that was wonderful, and it's a place you can go to lots of different fun activities within the community. In the end, I'm left thinking it's not enough. Yes, those resources are wonderful, but there really could be so much more. The students should be able to go to the police department and not have to worry that no one speaks their language or any of these other locations. There's so much we could do to improve this for those who don't speak English or are bettering their English at this point. In doing this walk, I learned so much about how I want to be a teacher someday. I definitely want a classroom that has lots of signs all over with different languages so my students can understand what's going on in the classroom. I want to be able to point them to resources like apps or any books or anything that could be helpful. So I think it's good to do research on your community and what can help these students. And really, I'm going to still continue to research to see how I can help my multilingual students. This walk taught me so much about my community of East Lansing. Before, I didn't know about any of the history, either the positive or the negative history, which is kind of sad. I wish everyone who lived here knew all that kind of stuff, so it was wonderful to learn it through this experience. I also really loved seeing how language plays a role within the community, even if I am left a little bit sad because it is mostly English that is relevant in the community. It's still good to see that there are options for people that need it. I really enjoyed this experience. I really loved everything I learned, everything I saw, and I would love to do something similar to this again in the future.